Hello class, this is a video tutorial on basic trigonometry part 3. In this video, we'll be learning how to calculate missing sides using trigonometry. To calculate a missing triangle side length, we do this in two steps. The first step is we determine the correct trig ratio required, so sine, cos, or tan, remembering SOHCAHTOA, and then place that into the correct ratio. And then step 2, we solve for the missing pronumeral using equation solving techniques. Now, this doesn't really make sense just looking at it, but once I've demonstrated a few, I hope you get the idea and you learn from there. So let's get straight into some equation solving techniques here. So, demonstrating here. So first, step 1, figure out whether it's sine, cos, or tan. Okay, so remembering SOHCAHTOA, SOHCAHTOA. So from the angle, we have opposites, so that's O, and we have the hypotenuse, which is H. Hope you can quickly see that this is SOH, which is sine. So we've determined that it is sine. We now have to make sure that we place it into the correct ratio. So sine of 20 degrees, which is sine 20, is equal to opposite, which is x, divided by a hypotenuse, which is 15.7. That there is step 1. We've figured out that it was sine, and we've placed it into the correct trig ratio. Now from here, we want to solve for x on its own, or like we would with regular, with regular equations. We want x on its own, so I'm getting my calculator ready. I want to get rid of x. So since it is x divided by 15.7, the opposite is multiplying both sides by 15.7. Make some more space. So times both sides 15.7. This causes these to cancel, leaving with x on its own on the right hand side. And for the left hand side, when we multiply trig ratios, it becomes, we write it like this, 15.7 sine 20. And that is exactly what we type into our calculator. So we'll get the answer x is equal to, I go into our calculator, 15.7 times sine, you can have the times there, but you'll see that we actually don't need it. So 15.7 sine of the angle given. So sine 20, closing brackets here. Pressing equals. So we get x is equal to 5.369369.7 ... And I usually like to round this to 1 or 2 decimal places. In this case, we say x is approximately 5 points. Let's round this to 2 decimal places, 37. And if this were in meters, we put this in meters as well. Let's round this to 2 decimal places. That's essentially the basic idea of it. So we figure out whether it's sine, cos, or tan, and then use equation solving techniques as shown here. Okay, I'm going to pause the video and give the next one a go yourself. Okay, so this one here. Let's figure it out. Is it sine, cos, or tan? So from the angle, we have the opposite, because it's furthest away, so O. And from here, we have the adjacent, because it's closest to us, so A. So which of these do we need to use? Sine, cos, or tan? Well, as you can see, O and A use tan. So tan of 34 degrees, don't need the degree symbol, is equal to y over 7.4. In this, and once again, hope you can see, it's very straightforward. We just multiply both sides by this value here. So times 7.4 on both sides. So we get 7.4 tan 34 is equal to y. Y is equal to, and then go into our calculator, 7.4 tan 34, closing brackets, equals, get 4.99. So 4.991. And for our final answer, we'll round it off to 2 decimal places, 4.99. And once again, remembering if it's in centimeters or meters or whatever it is. So if the question were in centimeters, we write down centimeters as well. And we'll indicate how many decimal places we rounded to. Okay, I hope it's straightforward enough for this. Okay, so let's keep going. Okay, so now we have degrees in minutes shown here. So once again, is it sine, cos, or tan? So from here, we have the side closest to it, so that's adjacent. And we have from the 90 degrees, it's pointing to the hypotenuse, so that is h. So this is cos. So C-A-H. So cos of 22 degrees 15 minutes is equal to adjacent, which is Z, over hypotenuse, which is 23. We multiply both sides by 23. So we get 23 cos 22 degrees 15 minutes is equal to Z. Right, and then, so we type that in to our calculator. So demonstrating how to do this one. So 23 cos, now taking a look, it'll be 22 degrees 15 minutes, making sure we close the brackets like so. Press equals, we get 21.287. So we get 21.287 ... and rounding it off to 2 decimal places for all my examples here, 21.29, and let's just say this is in millimeters, rounded to 2 decimal places. Okay, that's essentially it for this sort of equation type. Now I'd like for you to pause and take a close look at this one here. Give it a go and you'll notice something slightly different about this sort of example. Okay, so let's continue for this. Let's pull up our SOHCAHTOA. Let's figure it out. From our angle, we have the hypotenuse, so h. And from our angle, we have the opposite, O. Let's take a look. There's only one thing that uses opposite and hypotenuse, that is sine. Now, a big emphasis on placing the ratio correctly. So sine of 50 is equal to opposite, which is 18, over the hypotenuse, which is A. I hope you can see now there's a slight difference here. In this case, the letter is on top. In this case, the letter or the pronumeral is on the bottom. Now we solve this as we normally would with equations. So I'll show you the long way first in this example. So we multiply both sides by A. Okay, so it cancels the A's. This on the left-hand side still becomes A sine 50 equals 18, but we can't quite type this in just yet. But we want A on its own. So that's a times sine 50. Now remember, sine 50 is just a number, so we can actually still divide out sine 50 on both sides like this. And this cancels out the sine 50, which leaves us with a equals 18 over sine 50. And it's this that we type into our calculator. Whoops. So let's go straight to here. We get, whoops, daisy. Typing this in, so fraction first. Sorry, that's 18 over sine 50, making sure you close the brackets like so. Pressing equals. So a is equal to 23.497 dot. So a is approximately 23 point, rounding this to 2 decimal places, 50. Let's just say this one is also in centimeters, and we indicate that we rounded to 2 decimal places. Now that is the long way where I showed you 2 steps of what we did here. So we multiply by the letter first, and then divide by the trig ratio. But we can actually just treat this in one step. So once again, here, we figure out, is it sine, cos, or tan? From here, we have the hypotenuse, h, and we have the adjacent, a. So, hope you can see here, it is cos. So cos of 18 degrees, 19 minutes, is equal to adjacent, so 14.7, divided by the hypotenuse, which is b. Hope you can see that this is very similar to our previous example. Now, this is a little shortcut that I do. Whenever I see this on the denominator, I just think of these two as swapping. Let's take a look. The position of these essentially just swapped from the 2 steps that we did. So from here, just skipping the step, 14.7 over cos 18 degrees, 19 minutes, and that is what we type in. So b is equal to, typing it in, so fraction 14.7 divided by, or over, cos 18 degrees, 19 minutes, making sure we close that bracket because there's errors that happen when you don't. We get 15.484, and rounding to 2 decimal places, 15.48. Let's just say this one's in kilometers because we don't have any units for this. Rounding it off to 2 decimal places. Alright, so I'll leave you to solve the last one if you, when you'd like. Let's do this one very quickly now. So from the angle, I can see that we have the opposites and we have the adjacent. That there is tan, so writing it in, we get tan 54 degrees is equal to opposites, 34.5, divided by c. Switching places, we get c equals 34.5 divide tan 54. Typing that into our calculator, we get 34.5. You can actually write it like this, divided by tan 54, closing our bracket, we get 25.065, rounding this to 2 decimal places, 07, which is 2 decimal places once again. So I hope that gave you an insight into calculating missing sides using trigonometry. Hope you can see that the position and the ratio must be correctly placed, because either the letter is on top or the letter is on the bottom. So make sure that you place it correctly first before you continue. Hope to see you in the next video from this, and best of luck.